At Tambarcus Physiotherapy, we, husband and wife team, Harris and Angelique, provide expert family-centred care.
Whether you're recovering from injury, returning to exercise postpartum, or just wanting to build your strength and move with confidence, we're here to support you.
Visit us at our Padstow clinic. We can't wait to see you.
Hello and welcome to Wine with Wita, the podcast that is dedicated to engaging with health professionals and caregivers in meaningful discussions. I'm your host, Rita Shamoon, or as my clients call me, Wita. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist and I am so excited to have you here. Each week, we deep dive into connecting you with caregivers and healthcare professionals, sharing their insights, stories, and key takeaways to help you with your child's diagnosis and your journey. Whether you are a parent, healthcare professional, a lifetime learner, or simply a wine enthusiast, you're in the right place. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone, this is Wine with Wita. We are continuing the discussion around school readiness and how you can help your child get ready for school. I've interviewed a number of allied health professionals, but today I wanted to interview a mother who has been a previous guest on the podcast. If you recall, a few months ago, I interviewed Jessica Labban as she shared her very beautiful experience and insight into raising an autistic child and how she has supported her son, Jacob. Welcome back to Wine with Wita, Jess.
Thanks, Rita. Thanks for having me back.
It's so nice to have you back on now to talk about your insight into being a teacher.
Yeah.
Now, you have been a primary school teacher in Sydney for over 10 years. And the hot topic of, is my child ready for school, is without a doubt something that you would hear every time you're interacting with a young parent.
Absolutely, yes. It's definitely there's so many factors I think that we look into, but it's definitely is my child ready for school is like a big hot topic, definitely.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for parents to understand, and it's about providing the right information that is best for their child. Now, do you want to just give a brief insight into your teaching experience and what, like, for example, what classes you taught, and what programs you have run in the school system too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I took some maternity leave to be with my kids, I had been teaching for over 10 years. I taught a range of classes. So, in the beginning, I taught year six, and then I had a big chunk where I taught the middle of primary school, so year three. And then towards the end there, I had taught year two for a couple of years. And then in casual work, I had obviously taught across the school grades, but they were the ones that I mainly focused on. And then in the last 2 years that I was teaching as well, I was the stage one coordinator. So that was the coordinator for year one and year two. And I guess while I was teaching, I obviously ran a number of things. I did a lot of a couple of parent conferences. I taught in a Catholic school, so a lot of things around religious topics. I did the Holy Communion program, and then obviously, as every teacher does, well, especially at the school that I was at, we had to write our programs every year as well, our actual teaching programs, and then there was just a whole heap of professional development, I guess, every year and along the way. So yeah, just a range of things.
You talk about it so casually, but you've had an extensive amount of experience with a range of children across the cohort of the from kindergarten to year six. I wanted to talk about when you are meeting a family for the first time that want to send their child to school, and they ask you the question, school readiness, or bring up the topic around school readiness. What does that mean to you as a teacher?
So, as a teacher, and I think a lot of teachers will probably say this, I think parents come to us and their children are able to say sounds or are able to draw or are able to, count, or and they think, perfect, my child is ready for school now. Academically, they're doing great. But me, myself, and I think many other teachers, um, that academic side is probably only like maybe 30% of what we look at. I think a child being ready for
Wow.
school is more than their academics. I think it's definitely their maturity, how they can emotionally regulate, how they can socially interact, social cues, how they're able to deal with their day to day. And that is probably what I would look at. Like, they're the things that
Yeah.
I looked at in my children.
Mm.
Um, and in order to see whether they were ready, like, it's, for me, I would rather my child be able to emotionally regulate, be able to fix their own clothes, eat their own food, like, all of those things. I would rather they go into school knowing all of that than go into school knowing their letters and their numbers, to be honest.
That's such an important message because it's
Mm,
so much more than knowing how to write your name and know your letters or even know your sounds,
absolutely.
because all those other elements of emotional regulation, attention, self advocacy
Yeah,
are all critical to help a child learn. And as a
absolutely.
speech pathologist, I tell parents, your child does not go to school with a language disorder so the teacher can help their language
Yeah,
disorder. It is your teacher's job to teach the curriculum.
yeah.
And parents find that really challenging to understand. So, just from your perspective, when I say teach the curriculum, what does that mean from your lens as a teacher?
Essentially, teachers are like, in New South Wales and obviously across Australia, but Australia,
Mhm.
even though we have like an Australian curriculum, a lot of
Mm.
states have taken it upon themselves to create their own curriculum. So New South Wales, which is where like we are and where I taught,
Mhm.
has its own curriculum, and we essentially plan our day according to the subjects that are in the curriculum and what is expected of us to teach the children.
Mm.
How we teach it is obviously, differs from classroom to classroom. But we have like a list of things that we have to tick off, that we need to teach the children. Like, and those things are, our job is to teach maths and English and, all of those wonderful subjects. That's
Absolutely.
actually what
Yeah.
we're taught to do. So our job is
Yeah.
to tick those things off, really. Like, as a teacher, that's what we have to do.
Yeah, yeah. If you were to look at meet a child that's starting kindergarten, what top 3 skills or abilities would you examine before they start school?
Yeah, I think a child who can like problem solve, I think,
Yeah.
is really really important. I don't mean like a maths problem necessarily,
Can you give
but
an example?
yeah, like, for example, like, if, in, and I think many interviews need to, maybe school interviews need to be need to be changed,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of teachers can pick those things up. But like, I think if they're given like a scenario, in order to see how they would react or what they would do or they would talk to or who they would see in regards to that, or what they would say in that situation, being
Mm.
able to have a child like you had mentioned who has self advocacy is, I
Yeah.
think, like, really important. A child who can, is able to ask a question, whether it's regarding curriculum or regarding themselves, is really important. Um, I think that's definitely one of the things. I think another thing is um, a child who, like, and not a child who can sit still. That's not.
Yeah. Attend, I
Not.
think
I
is what you're
guess
trying to
that.
say,
Yeah,
like
I
pay
think a
attend and
child who
engage.
is able, yeah, who's able to give their attention to the
Mm.
teacher or to the task or to the person who they're playing with. I think that's really important. And I think a child who is, I guess, like, able to sort of take things into their like own stride, like, who's able to
Mm.
put, for example, like put their own jacket on, or like little things like that. Like I think um in school, I think a lot of children come to school missing a lot of those skills.
Yeah.
um and I think it's really important that they definitely know them, I think, going into school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You didn't not once touch onto anything academic. It was definitely
You
the
know,
self-help and
it's
regulation and
it's
engagement.
one absolutely, it's wonderful,
Yeah,
like that children who, before school know how to write their name, or like, that's great. They're all, to me, they're additions, like they're
yeah,
extra things. But if your child doesn't know how to do those things, that's okay, because they're going into school to learn how to do all of that.
mm,
However, they're not, for me, the most important thing, because a child who has the willingness to learn is more
mm,
important for me than a child who just knows things but is just can't, like, regulate, or can't,
yeah,
emotionally regulate, or can't, pay attention. Then that makes it so much harder for them to learn. Like, they're
to
essentially going
learn.
into school to learn. And a child who, like, has that willingness to learn will learn those things, like, immediately. They'll have that
Yeah,
ability to pick up those skills and learn those things, like, straight away.
yeah.
However, if they're not ready to learn, I think that's actually what it comes down to, like, whether
I
you'll
love how
be
you said that
ready
actually,
to learn or not. Yeah.
willingness. The
Yeah.
willingness to learn. And I think that
Yeah.
just applies for anyone in general.
Mm.
Your willingness to do something is your
Yeah.
biggest driving force to actually learn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we're looking at a child, it's not about the letters and the sounds. It's their attention, it's their regulation, their focus, and their even their self request skills.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Can you
Yeah.
help me with
Yeah.
help me repeat that, or
Mhm.
could you help me do this, or
Yeah.
even explain that again, because it's that willingness to understand which then
Yeah.
empowers the child to continue to
Absolutely.
learn throughout their schooling.
Exactly.
That concept of willingness, I know there's lots of foundations, but what can parents do to support their child's willingness to learn in the classroom environment before going to school?
Yeah, so I think in the years, like, I think from even when they're toddlers, I think fostering that curiosity in children
Yeah.
is really important. Them asking you, I know it might be annoying, but them asking you a million questions a day, yeah, them asking you a million questions a day about a million different types of topics. Like, to me, that's like a really good
I
cue.
love that. Yeah.
That's a child who's using their curiosity. Like, they want to
Yeah.
know, like, why is there the sun now, and why is the sun disappearing later? Well, even if they ask us the hard questions, many a time, like, I've had my daughter ask me questions and I truly have no idea what the answer is, and we look it up together, and that's another skill that they learn. And I think
Mm.
fostering that love of learning is really important. And I think that comes a lot, especially in those formation years, through play.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think parents underestimate play a lot. Never, ever, ever have I sat my children down to learn anything
Yeah.
in their formation, like, years. Like,
Yeah.
we learn our numbers through our playing, whether it's playing inside or outside, whether it's walking up the stairs to go to sleep. Like, we would,
Mm.
jump the stairs and count the numbers, or, we're going to jump two stairs. So if we're jumping two stairs, how do we count in twos? Or, like,
Mm.
little things like that. And I think that is actually how the best way for kids to actually learn, like, in those
Yeah.
formation years, it's through play. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not through sitting them down and making them handwrite or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like, that to me has, like, almost zero. I'm not saying it has zero value, but it really is not, like, it's not the key to
Mm.
getting your kids. So reading to your children is also,
It's the best.
even if they can't read, just reading to your children is really that skill, and those moments are priceless for so many different reasons.
Mm, mm. As a speech pathologist, I agree. Play,
Yeah.
joint reading, joint
Yeah.
engagement,
Yeah.
all creates that connection.
Yeah.
And when you have meaningful connections with your children, you are
Yeah.
then supporting not only their talking, but
Absolutely.
the foundations of their learning, engagement, attention, which will also foster relationship building too. So it's so
Absolutely.
critical that parents are
Yep.
aware of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, as a speech pathologist, I see lots of children with additional needs, and you know when a child has their difficulties. When you see children for the first time in a kindergarten environment, what are the challenges children experience when they aren't ready for school?
Yeah.
Give
So
examples.
this,
Yeah.
yeah. So this definitely is probably like the hardest thing, like when it
Yeah.
comes to schooling. I'll answer your question first, and then later on we can talk about it like
Yeah.
even more. But definitely, that's children who, um, I guess the biggest one is their attention span. That's
Yeah.
probably like the biggest one. The classroom in itself has a lot of sensory challenges. And in knowing that, a lot of children with special needs have sensory needs themselves.
Yeah.
And knowing those is really important because sometimes they can be a huge block to how a child is going to cope in the classroom, how they're
Can we
going to
just
learn
explain what
in the
sensory
classroom.
needs are?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm like a visual,
Yes,
overwhelming.
so I can, for example, I will use my son as an
Yeah.
example. One
Hmm.
of his sensory challenges is sound,
Yeah.
and a lot of noise or loud noise, or whether it be like a sudden loud noise or continuous loud noise, can really impact like how he feels.
Hmm.
He's able to emotionally regulate himself, and he's able to express that it's loud, and that skill has come through many years of trying to help him regulate. However, many children who might experience that same issue will struggle in a classroom, and instead of them not being able to, like, they won't know how to emotionally regulate, so they end up having a tantrum, or they'll go and sit in the corner, or they might run out
Mm.
of the classroom. A classroom is not a quiet place, and it shouldn't be. Like, a classroom
Mm.
shouldn't be a quiet place. I'm not saying it's a place of screaming, but a place of learning is a place where lots of dialogue happens, lots of group work. And when you have, like, majority of classrooms these days have, you know, I feel like these days it's like an average of 28 to 30 children
Yeah. They're
in
huge,
one room.
hey?
Yeah,
Mm.
in one room. And if they're all like talking together in groups, it can be a very loud place and
Mm.
extremely challenging for students who might have special needs. Um, so it's, they're like, that's just one example of something that, that might end up happening. And yeah,
Mm, So you mentioned the noise, so stimulus,
yeah,
sensory needs is a big one. Understanding how your child copes with lots of loud
yeah,
noises, probably lots of visual
yeah,
stimuli, being easily distracted. So
yeah,
if your child is experiencing that, we need to investigate to find out
absolutely.
strategies to support your child's learning, whether that's through speech, OT.
Yeah,
But I think the message here, Jess, is that working together as a team is so
yeah,
important.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
And I
something
think you
that,
can talk about that as a parent too.
yeah, I think that parents um, shouldn't be ashamed of the needs that their children
Mm,
have. Being aware of them is extremely important because it means that you're going to be able to advocate for your child so that they are going to be able to learn.
yeah.
It's the classroom is a challenging place for students with special needs.
Mm,
Um, it's challenging for the child, and I'm a teacher, and it's also challenging for the teacher because it can often it's in my last year of teaching, I had 6 neurodivergent children in my classroom, some diagnosed, some not. And that didn't matter whether they were diagnosed or not, but they had their
mm,
own way of learning, and in a classroom of, I think I had like 25 to 20. 25 is like that's a good number. If you can get into a classroom of 25 these days, it's pretty good.
Mm.
But it's impossible. It's actually not possible for the teacher to meet the needs of every single class, every single child in that classroom. And being neurodivergent, every single child has their own way of
Yeah,
learning,
learning
their own
styles.
special
Yeah.
needs, their own
Yeah.
sensory challenges. And so it's really, that's when the parent needs to be really involved, by helping the teacher, by letting them know my child
Mm.
has this. For example, if it is the noise, the teacher might be able to get some headphones for your child, or might be able to have a safe space for your child, or things like that. Another like really big one is the playground. They'll know, like, if once again, if the sound is
Yes.
a challenging place, the playground in many schools is so loud. When you have hundreds of children out in the playground, everyone's running around, so their eyes are being sensory, like it's like sensory overload of the eyes,
Sensory
and
overload.
then
Yeah, yeah.
sensory overload, like in terms of the noise. They know that maybe in, at lunchtime, there's like a safe space for those children who are challenged by that, because then
Mm.
after lunch, what's going to happen to your child? They're going to go back into the classroom, their mind and their brain is buzzing, and
Buzzing.
they most likely will become a behavioral challenge at that point,
Yeah.
because the poor child doesn't know how to deal with whatever's happening inside of them, because they've just experienced such a loud, such a busy place, and it's challenging for them. So I think it's really
It's
important to be able to express to the teacher the challenges that your child has.
yeah. So then you said, like what you said, so there's more strategies put in place so they can
Yeah,
have that
absolutely.
moment to
Yes.
regulate, which is so
Hmm.
important for these
Yeah.
kids, which will then
Yeah.
create the optimal learning
Yeah.
environment for kids.
Absolutely.
And I love
Yeah.
how you said earlier the school interviews need a change, because I agree.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's those interviews are literally half an hour,
Yeah.
not even.
Yeah.
And it's follow a simple following directions task,
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding key elements of all
Yeah.
language, but it's a quiet environment, firstly.
Yeah.
It's 2 or 3 people in that room, and it's not
Yeah.
enough to justify
Yeah.
your child's, personality, but also
Absolutely.
behavior.
Yeah.
And it's, as a parent, it is, you need to tell the teaching staff this so they can navigate the best for your child.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's
Yeah.
just like, if your child has any needs, like at all, don't think it's a
Don't know, shame, there's a
hindrance
lot of
to,
shame with it, hey?
yeah, and
Yeah.
don't think it's like, don't withhold that information thinking it's going to be a hindrance to, getting a place in a school.
Yeah.
If a school doesn't choose your child because of the needs that they have, then that school doesn't deserve to have your child.
Yeah.
And don't ever like withhold that information, because all you're doing is you're setting back your child from being able to have the best experience, like at learning. Like, if they're not
Yeah.
there to have a curiosity for learning and to enjoy themselves, then really, what are they there for?
What are they for? So true. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Now, Jess, I want to talk about a topic that I actually don't have enough information on. Maybe you can help me out. Repeating a grade. I know some families that have enrolled their child into, say, the local Catholic school. They weren't coping in kindergarten, and they said, great, I'll just let them repeat in another school, whether I think that would be like the public school. From my understanding, repeating doesn't occur anymore. Please correct me if I'm wrong or right.
Yeah, it mostly
What
doesn't. Yeah.
it doesn't, so first, repeat, you cannot repeat a child anymore. No. Does it so this is does it ever, I'm sure, has it ever happened? And if it has, please
Yes.
explain a little bit more. Yeah.
Yes. So, I think what you're talking about is, it's not like repeating while they're at school. So what happens is,
Yeah.
you
So
might
do you know
go
where
to
I'm coming from with this
yes,
topic? Yeah, because
you might
I've
go
seen
to an
parents that pull
interview.
the
Yeah,
child out
yeah.
and then go to
You're gonna
another one.
go. Yeah, you're gonna go to an interview, and the school might tell you that your child is not ready for school, and that, they might need one more year of or like they just say they're not ready for school yet.
They're not ready for
Your
school.
child might already be going to daycare, they may not. And so then you feel your child is ready. You take them to a public school for a year to do kindy, and then you enroll them back into the school that you wanted to the year after, and then they start kindy again. So I assume this is what you are talking about.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
this
But can I
is
ask, don't the schools communicate with each other?
no,
Like the public
not
and
really.
Catholic? Like,
No, no, not really.
really? So it's not in the
Not unless the parent. No, well, they're not going to know unless the parent is honest about it and says, brings
Okay,
the
all right.
papers from the other school. They're not like there's only so much a school. There's not like a database or anything that says where the child has been or where the child hasn't been. It's just the
Okay,
information that the parent provides.
okay.
But I just would love to say that that is extremely detrimental for about 98% of children. I
So let's just repeat
understand.
that. It's detrimental for 98% of children of parents who enroll them in a school,
Yeah,
and especially if one school has told them that they're not ready and they've
yeah,
made the choice to enroll them, say, in a public school,
yeah.
then the year after re-enroll them in
Mhm.
kindergarten but at another school. So there's
Yes,
significant consequences for that.
yes, absolutely.
Please, as a
And
teacher, explain.
yes. So, this happened many times when I was teaching, and
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that we saw is by getting them to do kindergarten again, that
Mhm.
child actually becomes extremely behavioral because so parents did it for many reasons. We have many parents that did it for many reasons. A
Mhm.
couple of reasons, for example, were one, they didn't want to re-enroll them again, or they didn't want to leave them in daycare because essentially school is cheaper than daycare, right?
Yeah, 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 it is.
And I get that, like daycare is really expensive, but then
Yeah.
I think for that year, instead of putting them in a kindergarten at the local public school, I think the best thing would be to actually either like leave them at home if possible, maybe reduce their
Mm.
days at daycare. There are many great school readiness programs that you can enroll them into. Um, Another reason is some parents think that they're going to give their child um, that edge, that they're going to give them
Extra,
make
not
them, yes,
being
it's going
smarter,
to
but
make them
making them
gifted.
brighter,
Yes,
gifted.
exactly,
Yeah,
gifted.
yeah, yeah.
And that is absolutely like not the case at
Mm,
all. But in getting your child to do kindy twice is not going to make them gifted or talented or more brighter like at all. If anything, it's actually, and it happened many times, the child becomes so behavioral because they are so extremely bored sitting in that classroom, and not because they are ready. So if a child is gifted, actually
yeah,
gifted,
gifted. Yeah,
that child is mentally ready for like the work or the challenges of the next grade
higher
up,
years.
essentially.
Yeah.
So the teacher uh, can give them work and challenge them in that way, but then that child is able to overcome those challenges themselves because they are extremely gifted.
Mm,
However,
mm,
it's
mm.
not the job of the teacher in kindergarten to teach your child year one work
No,
because your child has already done all the kindy work, they're bored, but they're not actually gifted or enough to do the year one challenging
you
work
won't work.
like
Yeah,
themselves. Like that, it doesn't. So that's actually what ends up happening. We had many children who just became behavioral because they were so bored, yet but they were not able to like go that next level
because
themselves,
they
if
weren't
that makes
enrolled in
sense.
that year. Yeah, I get it. I
Yes.
get it.
So that's a
I
huge
get
thing.
it.
Now, there is like the
Yeah.
2% of kids where something like this might be beneficial.
Mm.
And it might be, um, and it probably like is going to be those special needs like children. That's actually the only time where it might be beneficial. Or, for example, if the child has missed, like for medical reasons, or for, having to be overseas
Yeah, okay,
reasons,
I get that.
like
Yeah, yeah,
missed a
yeah, yeah,
big
yeah.
chunk of their like schooling, and they're not like missing, for me, missing a big chunk of kindy is really detrimental, because kindy and year one to me are the formation like the formation grades,
Yeah.
where children are learning how to read, learning about numbers, learning. So it's not necessarily topics, it's
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
like
You learn the
they're learning
skill.
how to. And
Mm, mm,
if
mm,
they
mm, mm.
miss those, like if they miss, 3 or 4 months of sounds, that's going to really impact their,
Yeah.
like their reading. So
I always tell parents those early stages, so early stage 1 and then stage 1 are the
yeah,
years where your children learn
yeah. How to,
how
yeah,
to read, how
yeah.
to spell, how
Hmm.
to construct text types.
Yeah,
However, it's from stages 2 and up, so year 2, 3, and so forth. They need to use the skills that
yeah,
they've learnt
exactly.
in order to become independent
Absolutely.
learners
Yeah,
themselves. So you're
yeah,
learning how to read and spell, but
yeah,
the other years you're using your ability to read to
yeah,
learn.
yeah,
And it's we have to really stress that this is
yeah,
where starting school, your child needs to have all those early foundations so they can become an effective learner and participant in the classroom.
yeah. And I
Mm.
was going to say, if a school tells you your child is not ready,
Yeah.
like in 99% of cases, they're being honest with you. They're not just
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
accepting
Yeah.
your child, or they're not just like, wanting to, not have more or whatever it
No,
is.
yeah, 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 yeah,
If
yeah.
they, that as in, if they'll let you know that, obviously there's some schools that have like only a certain amount of like
Mm.
enrollments, but those ones will just let you know that we're sorry, we can't accept your child. But if you get
Yeah.
told we can't accept your child because they're not ready for school, actually listen to that
Yeah,
advice,
yeah.
because it really, otherwise it makes those first like 4 or 5 years of schooling really difficult for that
Mm.
child.
Mm.
It makes it
What
so hard
impact
for
have you
them.
seen, sorry to interrupt you, Jess. What impact have you seen of kids later on in their schooling of those who started early when they could have waited an extra year?
Yeah,
What have you
so
noticed in their learning and
basically,
social development? Yeah.
it just is. I'm sorry.
Hi, that's okay. For everyone listening,
Yes,
we have
have a
gorgeous
visitor.
Olivia, and if Jess doesn't mind,
Yeah,
sorry, Jess, I don't mean to. Jeff just doesn't mind. I'm just going to keep recording, and Olivia could be
yes,
part of this conversation because
absolutely.
Olivia
As
is
long
going
as,
to big school next year. How fitting is this conversation? So
yeah, Olivia's going to big school next year. Yeah,
Olivia's
absolutely.
going to big school next year,
Yes.
and we're going to show everyone on the TV what wonderful listening you do as Mummy finishes her big talking. Okay. Okay. So
Yes.
be quiet.
Excellent.
So, Jess, what are we
So
saying? The impact of kids later on.
yeah. So I haven't taught like a full year of kindy or a full year of year one, but I have
Yeah.
taught many years of year two. And even in year two, I can see the difference. Like when I would look up a child's like records to see at what age they started and what
Yeah.
age they didn't start, there is just like you just know the kids who started either way too young or way too immature, and who maybe could have waited that one more year, and that one more year would have given them the biggest impact to improve their learning. Some of the things is obviously um, how they deal in the playground. So one of the things is the playground,
Yeah.
how they deal in the playground with certain situations with their friends, and how they're able to make friends or to problem solve some of the situations with their friends or deal with the situation maturely. Sometimes, no matter how many times you tell a child who's really young and doesn't, like, you can sit and tell them like many things about a social
Yeah.
situation, but if they are just not mature enough to understand it, then basically they're just not going to get it. And it's not, and it takes many years then for
Yeah.
them to deal with that, and it really impacts them. Like, you feel
Yeah,
sorry for them
yeah.
because it genuinely impacts them. It's
Yeah.
something they can't get over. It impacts like how much they love coming to school, how much they deal with, their learning, all of those things. So one way is definitely the playground. Another way is how they're able to focus in the classroom. I
So you
think the
see changes with
focusing,
that. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
the focusing is definitely a big one because, like I said, it's not about a child like making a child like sit still and like be, like a prisoner in the classroom. It's not
Mm,
about that. But there's a difference between being able to focus and being able to sit still.
mm.
I had many kids in the classroom who, were wrigglers, but they're able to like literally focus. They knew what I was teaching. They were able to absorb that information. Whereas compared to other students who, I guess everyone calls them off with the fairies. Like they maybe had
Yeah.
like a 5 minute attention span, and then you could get whatever you put in that 5 minutes, and then after that, it was just so difficult to actually get them
Engage with
to
them and return
focus
to
and listen.
task.
Yeah. Or like they
Yeah.
would get tired. We had so many kids. This happened a lot in kindy. So many kids who still needed to have like a little nap or like a little sleep because they would just be so tired they couldn't regulate themselves. Um, and it would just impact like their day and their learning. Yeah.
Yeah. And all I keep going back to is the importance of engagement, emotional regulation,
Yeah.
attention, and all of those skills can definitely be fostered in the early years. And it's so
Yeah.
important that
Absolutely.
parents understand that
Yeah.
that yes, there are circumstances that parents may need to send their children early,
Yeah.
but it's about understanding the long-term consequences
Yeah.
if they send them without the awareness of their child's difficulties as
Yeah.
well.
And
Yeah.
there are some kids who are ready like that little bit
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
I would always recommend holding back. That's just my
Yeah.
preference. But I do
Yeah, yeah, I
see some
agree.
children who are like ready just that like little bit early. And that's
Mm.
okay. Like, and they can go and they're able to deal with it. But that is like the very minimum and very like minuscule amount of children who are ready
Yeah.
like at that age.
Yeah.
If I really think children should start school the year that they turn
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 6.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I agree.
I really think like it's just, I think that's like the optimum age. And in if parents look into it like around the world, like that's not even kindergarten. Our kindergarten is obviously kindergarten named differently around other states as well, like not even around the
Because I think
world.
even in Melbourne, it's called pre-kin they have a pre-kindy.
Pre-kinder, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
even like at that age they're in like pre-kindy.
So they're
They're
in Melbourne, their kindergarten is Sydney's Year 1. New South
Yes.
Wales Year 1?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
like
Yeah.
in overseas, many in Europe especially, kids don't actually start school till they're 7.
7,
Um
yeah. So what does that
yes.
say about, um, not psychology, but more like mental capacity
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
development, right?
Yeah,
And the
and
early
especially,
years. Mm.
yeah, especially development. Like I have a lot of friends of mine, or even like the parents that I had in the classroom, would, oh, my son or my daughter, they don't know how to like, write properly. They have messy handwriting. They have, and all of those things. But if you actually look at the development of a child, their like the muscles and the bones in their hand are not actually formed
Mm.
properly until they are 7 and up. So they actually don't have full
Wow.
use, yeah, their grip and all of those things. So even though lots of children have great handwriting when they're little, a little bit more little, but really like children don't actually have, your muscles don't actually grow and form and things like that in the hand until
Yeah.
you're 7 years old. So
I think there's a lot to say about with the starting age.
yeah,
I think I think there's as a country, but
definitely.
more really empowering parents to
Yes,
understand this and the consequences and the long term
absolutely.
impact
Yeah,
of sending children young and understanding what teaching and learning is about,
Yes,
right? Especially when
absolutely.
we want them to thrive in learning, but and developing
Yeah,
relationships too. Now, just
absolutely.
before we finish up, what can parents do to help their children get ready for school if they are starting school so they can participate better as a teacher? Now, previously I had an occupational therapist who spoke about having visual timetable or visual routines,
Yep.
using the same language to explain what they do first, then and last. Unpacking their lunchbox, knowing how to zip up their pants when they go to the toilet, shoot, et cetera, et cetera. So could you please give some tips for parents to use
Yeah.
or apply before their child starts school?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna have this like twofold. So
Yeah.
I agree with everything, and obviously would have said the same things that your other
Mhm.
guests have said. The visual timetable, and then getting them to do all of those things and be ready, and their clothing and all that is like they're the things that we want them to do. I think one other thing is I think and we touched on it ever so
Mm.
slightly, is having that relationship with your child.
As a
There,
parent
as a
or as a
parent.
teacher
So,
having the yeah, okay.
yeah, no, as a
I'm
parent.
interested. Tell me
So,
about this. I haven't heard
yes.
this. Tell me about that. Yeah.
So for me, I think after like many years of teaching, I
Mm,
found those students who had that sense of security and that sense of love, and
mhm.
that sense of support, really thrived as learners. So to the
Wow.
point,
Yeah, that's I
yeah,
get
to the
that. I get
yeah,
that though.
to the point where I like towards like maybe the last 4 years of my teaching, I was confident enough to tell parents during parent teacher interviews that you need to, and not because they didn't love their child, of course they did, um, that you need to really love your child.
Could you
I
explain
found,
love? Because my impression of love
yeah,
and your impression of love
yeah,
could be very different to another parent. So some
yeah,
parents' idea of love might be giving them food.
yes,
Another idea, I feel like you're coming down the lens of connecting and
yeah,
having genuine moments together.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
why I spoke about when I mentioned reading a book, it has so many like literacy like benefits.
Mm.
However, that connection that you have with your
Mhm.
child is so important, because if they don't get that security from you in the beginning, um, and that's something learned, that's not something that they're just going to develop like on their, it's not like something developmental. You actually have
Mm.
to, the best way to foster that security is to, you have to give them that sense of security, to
Yeah. Yeah,
make
yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
feel like they're loved, to make them feel like it's okay to make a mistake, because we
Yeah.
learn from mistakes. It's okay to
I'm gonna interrupt you
experiment.
there. Something happened with my daughter yesterday.
Yeah.
I think also what you're saying is letting children being resilient to
Yes.
change is a
And that's how
big one, and
resilience. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's how it's
and
built.
learning the answer of no is a big one
Yes.
too. Like my daughter
Yes.
wanted to participate in a band,
Yeah.
but it's too challenging for me to take her because of
Yeah.
all our other life commitments, and she was devastated because she didn't get what she wanted.
Yeah.
But in that moment where I have that relationship with her, we spoke about adversity. We spoke
Yeah.
about knowing that no is an answer, but we can find other solutions and
Absolutely.
so forth.
Yes.
But also showing her that's what life's about, and building
Yeah.
that relationship with her is
Yeah.
so important, which teaches her life skills too.
Yes. I
Mm,
found as a teacher, I changed the way I taught, and I was
mm.
able to have so much success academically, socially, emotionally with students in my classroom, because of how much like love I showed them.
I think even we can
Um,
say secure connection.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
was just being able to see students like flourish and come out of their shell,
Mm.
when we stopped focusing so much on their marks.
Performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And focused more on their interests and how we can use their interests in the classroom. I'm giving them a secure, like I gave them a secure space to express themselves in the way that they needed to. And I had so much success with students, not because my students got great marks. They definitely,
Yeah.
that was not what it is. And once I stopped focusing on that, and that's what I explained to parents, it really is not like about that.
No.
It's okay that your child is not getting 100% in maths, but did you see that
Mm.
your child is the most amazing at drawing? Like,
Yeah.
have you noticed you've been so focused on this, but your child is so amazing at, like, look at the illustrations like that he draws.
Mm.
Like every child also learns in a different way. And I
Yeah.
think that that's really important. And that's something important in a household as well, because,
Mm.
many of us have multiple children, and
Different personality
you
types.
might have a super studious student who is a bookworm and loves to, actually study. And then you're going to have a student who doesn't even want to look at their homework or their books,
And
but they
that's
are a
okay.
really exactly. And I think it's
Mm.
really, really, really important not to compare, to actually like learn the loves that your child has, and foster that, and then learning will come from there. And that's how
Yeah.
I think a secure and safe child is one of like the best learners.
Listeners. I really appreciate all your insight because we've really touched base on the elements of connection, play, really taking advantage of those moments you have with your child to foster that safe,
Yeah,
secure relationship with your child,
yeah,
because all of those unspoken skills develop the skills that we visibly see in
absolutely.
their performance
Yeah,
academically on the playground and so forth and so forth. And we really stress the importance of, if you can get your child to start school when they're in year six, when they're turning 6, because of all those developmental milestones, that your child would flourish better, which will make
definitely.
them a better learner in the environment too.
Yeah.
Jess, before we finish up, is there anything else that you would like to say from a teacher's perspective for the series of Is My Child Ready for School?
Just, you know what? I think I mentioned it before, and I think, and this is gonna like
Why
tie
are we
in
whispering?
all of this, because it's actually like the hottest topic. I think I get texts about, like, being a teacher or whatnot. Oh, how can I? And I mentioned it before. Oh, my child has like horrible handwriting. Spend
Oh,
the years before they go to school playing with Play-Doh,
play.
getting them to use pegs. Like, actually focus on making their hands strong. You want them to write well in school? Don't give them a
Yeah.
pencil before
Or even
school.
see an occupational therapist. Like, they can give
Yes,
you
if
strategies and
it's
tips
really,
to help
yeah,
you out. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And there are so
Get off
many
the
strategies out there.
screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Mm.
not going to get their handwriting to do well by sitting and practicing like for hours.
Yeah.
That's not going to help. In those
Yeah.
formation years, get those muscles like nice and strong, ready to hold the pencil and actually be able to grip it properly, and so that their hand doesn't get tired. That's actually like the
Yeah.
best way to do it. Yeah. That's
And
my
also
hot tip.
knowing the sounds of letters, not the letter.
Reading. Yeah. Yeah. And
Read,
not the
read, read, read,
exactly
read.
learning the sounds first before the letter. Yeah.
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 Jess, you
Yes.
are so passionate. I am loving this version of you today.
Yeah.
A few months ago, you were a mum and you had your
Yeah.
mum face on. Now
Yes.
you're in teacher mode and you have rocked this
Absolutely.
interview.
Yes.
Oh, with Olivia and coming as
And
well
then
as
with
your
my,
little
yeah, we had an
superstar.
addition of my daughter. Yes.
She was wonderful. She was
Yeah.
great. Uh, Jess, I loved listening to you again, and thank you for your valuable insight to support so many parents on the podcast, especially with just, helping their child get ready for school. But for anyone that would love to reach out for Jess, I will put her details in the show notes. Now, Jess, you know what this is about. I always ask parents or guests, if you were to be a better version of yourself, Jess, tomorrow, what word would you apply to yourself today? As a teacher, not as a mother.
As a teacher, I would read more myself. That's what I think is
So the
going to
word
be
is
the most
that's more
important.
than one word. Read more myself, as in
Yes.
visit, like
Me.
read the book.
Yes. Read as in I would
Oh,
read. Yes.
as in read a
My-
book.
Read a book. Yes.
How? Okay, I'm trying to understand. So you would be a better version of yourself if you read more.
If I
So
read more,
reading is your
yes.
word.
Absolutely
Mm,
reading.
let me guess, is that for
Knowledge. I guess knowledge.
self-knowledge and
Yeah, and I think
vocabulary?
knowledge,
Yeah.
yeah, I think knowledge is like power, really. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
think that
is.
being,
Love
and I'm
it.
sure all mums would agree that it's, we don't prioritize ourselves, and trying to find that time to read is really hard.
Yeah.
But I think that, because it's something I push, and I think it's so important for kids, but I still think it's just as important for adults. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so true, so true. Well, Jess, thank you again for your wonderful insight on Wine with Wita. And for everyone else, a wonderful episode will be brought to your ears next week. Take care. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Wine with Wita. I hope you found some new inspiration, learnt something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you please leave a 5-star review, as it really helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it takes 5 seconds. If you're keen for more strategies and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow RS Speech Pathology.